Welcome to another presentation in our Light Body Summit series. We are so pleased today to be talking with Maia Nartoomid, who has been in communication with Thoth, our Ascended Master Thoth, for many decades now, as well as many higher beings. Today, we're talking about the Pure Gem Codex, the new human. And we want to welcome Maia and Jody. Hi, Jody, and hi, Maia.
Hello, everyone.
Maia, as we get started, I'd like you to share a little bit about your connection with Thoth. He did come, it's a long story. He came to you and he's been with you as a guide, and you have been a scribe for him. Can you share the information that you received from Thoth and why it's so important at these times?
Okay, well, very briefly, my actual communication, I guess, guidance, let's put it, guidance from him, that stream, that Thoth intelligence. And obviously it goes beyond that. Thoth is an aspect of all of that I identify with and connects to me. And that all began, I guess, at my birth. There's some very mystical stories around that. But the ultra beings are the star kindred who came to me first, and they began consciously communicating with me in 1967, I would say. But I had experiences with them actually when I was 4.5, so, but the conscious communication began. And they told me I had a mentor who was behind the scenes and I would be able to communicate with him in the future. And that future was in 1977 when it began. So it's been a long journey with the whole path, and Thoth being kind of the capstone of that, at least in this reality. He doesn't call himself an ascended master, though. He calls himself an illumined one, or illumined master, you can call him, I guess. There is a difference there. We won't go into the details, but he makes a difference between the two. So, my journey with him was started so long ago. And in the very early years, it was actually validated on certain levels, the science, by Edgar Mitchell and other scientists like George Lawrence, the inventor of the world's first laser engine, and Christopher Bird, co-author of Secret Life of Plants, and others. It's been a long journey, and my work with that energy, that consciousness, that intelligence, centers primarily around spiritual science. Spiritual quantum science, you would call it nowadays. Certainly it has aspects of it that are more, delving into the heart and soul and wisdom of the universe. But it's all, underlying is this quantum science understanding of the spiritual science,
Well, it really is fascinating. And the word that you bring out, the teachings that you bring out from Thoth is quite remarkable. And when you channeled it, when you received it in the 70s, it was interesting. And now today, in today's world, it is more relevant. Can you speak a little bit about that, how it really is relevant now?
Yes, because that was so long ago. And really, there was not that much out there. And then there was no internet, well, not for us peons, or for the the military, whatever, maybe, but not for us, not for the masses. And so there was no way for me to even the few books that might have been out there that might have connected, I rarely was able to get a hold of one, and certainly not at the beginning. So all of this just came through, and it was amazing, and it seemed so natural to me. And yet, it just felt so natural at first. I just kind of took it for granted almost. You couldn't say, how can I do that? But it seemed like that was what I was born to do. I was like, oh, yes, I remember now. I'm going to do this, And so it just, because I was so young, too. I was in late teens and early 20s, And so that's what I did. But as time progressed, I would look at it and I'd go, I wonder where this is all leading. It seems so advanced. It seems so out there. I mean, why am I giving this to people that are going, I mean, what is the purpose? And Thoth told me, even back, he told me actually on and off, but the main thing I remember is like when I lived here in Crystal before in the 1990s, like in 1994, 95, 96, in there, he said to me, there will come a time when people will be rushing towards you for this information, in so many words. And I went, really? Because, I just had a handful of people who could even understand it. Well, now that's true, because people do basically understand it now. And even the parts they don't understand, they feel deeply in their being because they're ready for it. And with the whole world circumstance as it is, and being connected through the internet and having access to other information and whatever, people are more awakened. They're more ready to experience what was written, what I brought through from Thoth those many, many years ago. And of course, I'm not stagnant about it. I bring it forward as information that's valuable written then, but valuable for now. But I also comment on it. I bring it up to date with, where we are now in time.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for the work that you do. You have a YouTube channel, and it is really beautiful, the videos that you put out for all of the teachings that you were given, the guidance that you were given. We are going to play the Pure Gem Codex. And before we get ready to play this video, can you share a little bit about it and how it relates to light body, as we're talking about this light body series and DNA upgrades? What do you know about that in relation to what we are becoming as humans?
Yes. Well, the Pure Gem Codex was given to me, as I stated in the video, but I'll preface it here, in 1977, I believe. And so you have to really realize how far back that was in time. There was no context for this then. Now you could go, oh, I heard something the other day that relates to that. There was nothing then. It was just, there it was. And I was, so I worked with it. It was a very complex piece of material. That's why I don't give it all by any means in the video, because it's really, even for today, it's very complex. But there were parts of it that weren't. There were parts of it that really, I felt nowadays, at least, people would resonate with. So that's what we're going to see. Now, the pure gem body he's speaking about is the transformed state of the human body, being the template for that body, which refers to sort of biblically or Kabbalically is the Adam Kadmon template for our bodies, as we move from a world system 1, where we are now, to a world system 2 frequency, which refers to as the new Earth star. We will assume these new body forms. When I say new, it's not, not gonna have 2 heads or something, but it's energetically, it's in the being, it's the frequency, it's the vibration. And he refers to that as the pure gem, because he says it's a high crystalline vibration of the DNA state. So that's what the pure gem is. Now, the Pure Gem Codex was sort of, it was offering us an understanding of the process. And some of it that I gave in the video is understandable, as I said now, to most people that are in this. But the rest of it was like very, very symbolic. And it talked about future states when people would do this and that. And even when I was getting it, I was like, oh, I don't know. So I didn't put all that in there, but the parts that I did place refer to exactly what this topic is about, this whole gathering of the event, for the genetics of the codex of the planet. And so it refers to that, and it talks about certain levels and understanding how these frequencies are entangled and how they work for humanity, not in great detail, but in enough that you get the sense of it and you understand, at least from the Thothic perspective, where all this is going.
Beautiful. Okay. Well, then let's take a listen to this beautiful video. Here we go.
Thoth speaks to me of the pure gem as a future ascended state of the human form. It is a multifaceted light vehicle for the soul. We are encouraged not to wait for the future, since time is a multidimensional vehicle, past, present, can be summoned into the now moment. The pure gem will, as all the energy bodies, including the physical, become a pulsing gem-like quality once ascended into the new Earth star. This pure gem state isn't something that is simply non-existent 1 minute, then we ascend and it is there. It will still be a matter of receiving it in stages, but in the new Earth star, the stages will not require eons of time, as time is quite different in the new Earth star. Even now, in this current world experience, we have the opportunity to begin to become pure gem beings, even if on micro levels of the total transformation. These micro levels are vital phases of the whole process. I've made a video previously on the pure gem and the Emstra molecule because the two go together so well. But this video is really focusing specifically on the change of the human element within the pure gem construct. I will be linking the other video on the pure gem, the Emstra molecule, and Michael Dunn's discussion with me on that subject in the information box below. In 1976, I received from the Thoth Akasha the Pure Gem Codex. This was given to me or opened to me by the star kindred I was working with at the time. It would be another year before I could directly communicate with Thoth, but it nevertheless came from his Akasha. The actual entire codex is not the subject of this video. It is highly esoteric and difficult to understand. I doubt that I will ever release it in full. However, I am going to be reading to you just a small portion of that codex that is understandable, and I believe it might be beneficial to some. So I'm going to share it with you here, as well as a activational connection to that whole stream. The pure gem is a synthesis of soul presence and human behavior, which when realized forms a pure structure, a line of action on the physical plane that is in perfect alignment with the energized intelligence of mankind. Consequently, what is now, what in essence is qualitative only, through the realization of the pure gem, will become also quantitative in our physical reality. Through incarnation, the soul will multiply and grow, evolve, its quality of presence within specific manifested forms. It will then be able to interact physically with spiritual properties more precisely and effectively. Humanity will thus find its world in the highest phase of its physical evolution, that point of cosmic chemistry, which is the last vestige of atomic gravitation binding the soul. Enveloped in the etheric plane, humanity and its world will become a finely faceted state of purification before the release of its physical nature. As individual souls evolve into higher stages of existence, so does the earth as a whole. The pure gem state is the final collective effort of Earth's incarnate souls to achieve physical unity within an etheric perspective. The physical body inhabited by such souls will become one with the whole spectrum of the soul's greater being. Through its pure gem state, humanity will ultimately realize the multiple characters of its soul and utilize the experiences of its past and future selves. By focusing our energies into one conscious realization, we will explicate the true cosmogony, in turn releasing ourselves from the need for physical experience. For in the understanding of the creation of the physical cosmogony, in the comprehension of physical order, man will cut himself free from his insecurities, which place him in doubt of his role in the universal schematic. Not unlike an orphan child, mankind has ardently longed for its celestial heritage. Through the recognition of the consummation of his seed, man will thirst no more in the regions of physical worlds, but ascend into the fuller domain of heaven. In order to achieve this realization, the human system must connect to its higher presence, and the soul within must be absorbed within its oversoul, its true self. While the accumulation of knowledge to humanity's conscious senses is essential in its mental development, it is the application of knowledge through the physical reaction to the cosmic principle that constitutes the realization of the soul. In humanity's choice of physical alignment to cosmic reason, humanity places itself in the flow of nature, building a structured sense analogous to its divine character or spirit. In this decisive action, humanity conspires with its senses to duplicate the creative acts of universal intelligence. While humanity makes few attempts to declare its absolute allegiance to the source or the true basic laws, it creates in pantomime a definitive logos in which the Codex of all universal law may be found. It is time for mankind to trace its own symbology for an accurate disclosure of its relationship to the universal mind that recognizes its existence. Within this Pure Gem Codex is to be found a symbolic representation of the prismatic lines that extend from the universal reckoning and interact with the actions of souls, forming a golden mean of harmony and the higher expression of the soul, which is capable of creating atomic synchronization and ultimately physical reality. This concludes the quote from the Pure Gem Codex, which was received by me in 1976. At this point, I would like to discuss it just for a few moments. When I received this codex, I did not know about the new Earth Star, World System 1 to World System 2, any of that. My relationship with Thoth developed, so one thing led to another, However, I found almost no inconsistencies in the material that I received these 55 plus years. There are some places where it needs to be filled in more. I didn't understand what I was receiving, so therefore I gave it an interpretation that, let's say, was limited, or maybe just didn't quite hit the mark. Even that is rare, but there were places where that happened. The reason I'm mentioning this to you is because I want to clarify some points that were delivered to me at that time. Talking about releasing the physical, moving into the higher spiritual. Obviously, we must do that on many levels. We can do that while we're still in the body. It's not about dying to do it. Yeah, you can do that too, and you will. But it's about, finding that place where all is one, where you're not limited to the physical body. And therefore, it can be transitioned, it can be transformed, you can be in a higher state of physicality for a period of time, you can come and go from that state. You see, there are all kinds of directions that you can flow when you understand the principle of expanding beyond the physical. This does not indicate that the physical is a bad thing. As Thoth has said to me, matter does matter. And actually, there's no physical, really, because from the higher perspective, the Thothic perspective, there is nothing but spirit. What we call matter and he indulges us in that word. Physicality, he uses that word, but he clarifies that he's using it for our sake so we can understand these graduations. But actually, everything is spirit. So the densest of matter is simply an organization of spirit in a way that atomically aligns for us for useful purposes. I especially liked where he said that through incarnation, the soul will multiply and evolve its quality of presence within specific manifested forms. It will then be able to interact physically with spiritual properties more precisely and effectively. I believe that's where we are right now. Remember, this was given to me in 76, and where we were then and where we are now is light years apart in many respects. I believe right now we are at the crucible of being able to interact physically with spiritual properties more precisely and effectively. Well, I really wasn't planning on reading any more of the Pure Gym Codex to you here, but Thoth tapped me on the shoulder, so to speak, and requested that I do share just a bit more. So I'm going to do that right now. In the Codex, Thoth is speaking of the temple light. He's using that as a terminology that is understandable to us. And he states, "The temple light is the gathering of souls into a commitment of flexible realities. It began long before the earth breathed its first creative sigh, but also it could be said that it begins now, in the moment you read this. Although such continuity of the souls is a cosmic law applied to all souls, the order of the temple light are those souls initiated through recognition for the purpose of sustaining divine knowledge through all generations of existence. Through the temple light may be received instruction from your higher self in a past or future character, and also the past or future characters of other souls whom you know or have known. As the temple light is an order or group of souls dedicated to a purpose, it would seem to be selective in its initiates. Yet the temple light is not temporal, but the etheric archetype of physical orders. Therefore, the initiation process of this higher order is not bound to secular conformity. The temple light is timeless, the resultant synthesis of past, present, and future. It is then numberless in initiates, excluding no souls, as all souls eventually attain the ability of etheric sovereignty, thus opening the door of the soul's superconsciousness to the realization of its multiple continuity. Once this is achieved, the soul is fully realized within the temple light. It becomes aware of its continuous being through multiple characters of karmic circumstance, each character being the higher presence of the soul during an individual incarnation. The souls of the temple light are energy extensions of the temporal being. While the soul is in a physical system, i.e. incarnate, the higher presence, while resuming the identity of the physical system, is not bound by temporal relativity, but rather freed to express the total soul through the gnosis of divine reason. In this timeless forum of thought, it is not the higher presence that is the duplication of the physical system. The higher presence is the divine realization of the soul, the archetype, oversoul, who assumes the character of the temporal half in order to communicate its existence to that lower self. As the soul is released from one character and assumes another via incarnation, the oversoul or higher presence encompasses the new character. As all time is one in the etheric plane, the soul does not discard past identities for newer ones, but instead encompasses new dimensions of experience as an expansion, increasing its design. Each character remains then as a golden bead of intelligence upon the string of time, while yet another bead is added by the infinite artisan of divine law. Understand that the temple light is a structure of intelligence through the vehicle of experience. A soul seen within the temple light displays the many phases of karmic experience, expressing each character to the fullest, while maintaining the pure Gnostic value. The structure of the temple is built on the foundation of divine cosmic law. It is this law that is the core of the pure gem, the temple light being the etheric externalization of profound principle.
Well, that is so beautiful, and it's inspiring to where we are going as humans. And we're already so close to that. I want to bring in Jody, the beautiful assistant for Maia, a good support agent for this teaching as well. And I want to give you both some time to reflect on this video that we just saw. How close do you feel that we are to this new human that we are becoming?
Well, actually closer than you might think, because a lot of what is going on in the preliminary stages of it is on what we might refer to nebulously as the inner planes, or the other state of that connects to this state, that feeds it. And so a lot of that's going on the nutrient level, and it's organizing and creating these connections, these entanglements with our quantum field in this reality. So we might be sitting here and saying, well, I'm feeling different. Here I am, and I don't see any crystals forming on my body, which wouldn't be the case anyway. But, it's actually working for you on another level. And more, you're going to feel triggered in the body by things at first maybe you don't quite understand, might even feel uncomfortable. I think a lot of people are calling them ascension symptoms. However, categorized under ascension symptoms that many people are talking about, a lot of is other stuff. Might be HARP influences, not so good, might be other good influences, but not necessarily what we're speaking about here. There's a whole mixed bag that people says, oh, what's an ascension symptom? They're just kind of piling it all in one state. But the true ascension symptoms that are connected to the creation of the pure gem body frequency, do have some uncomfortable feelings at times, and both physically and emotionally, as you're moving through the process of developing this state. And, the thing about it is that there's assistance waiting for you on that level. It's not like the higher beings or whatever just throw all this stuff in the inner field and it has to sort itself out and then move down into your being. No, not at all. There's a process, and beings you can call them angelics and illumined ones and star kindred and inner earth kindred. All these beings, they have an organizational field, and in different compartments or orders, you can call them whatever you want. They're working with that, and they're all in communication, and they're helping individuals move through this process. And when you get down to individuals like you and me and Jody, each of us have our assistants. First we have the angelic being that is, or the guardians and works with us, or beings, but in a more practical level, we have beings that are specifically, let's say, assigned, that's kind of a material word, but assigned to work with each one of us. And considering how many people there are out there on the planet, you would wonder how that could possibly be. But you see, they're working with something outside of linear time. So one or several beings that are, I say beings, like star kindred or human beings, illumined ones, they're working with me, let's say, or you. They could be working with thousands of others if they wanted to at the same time. And yet it's not impersonal. It's hard for us to understand that in our reality, but they are able to do that. Did you leave?
Yeah, we just had a power outage.
Oh,
and
oh my
isn't
God.
that interesting? I
It
know.
is.
And I have a UPS backup and it just timed out. All right. So that was beautiful. So Jody, can you share any more on that?
Yes.
Can you help us out? Thank you.
I'd be happy to. One of the things that I do is that I'm a deep mining researcher by nature. I architect and organize and structure information. And what I like to do is spread my research out far and wide and begin to sort through everybody's information and look at the ties that bind, so to speak. And in doing so, what I've discovered about the thothic stream information that Maia has brought through, I have found to be the most accurate and the most full-bodied information source that I have come across in many, many decades. You hear a lot of generalizations out there, but once you begin to hone in on the reality of the sacred science, you'll begin to feel that this is really it. Now, for example, most of you may, or some of you may not, know that our entire cosmos, the Milky Way galaxy, is hurtling through space, and we have now entered an entirely different space within the galactic sheet. And in doing so, the electromagnetic fields that have been surrounding not only Earth, but all of our solar system and the Milky Way galaxy, that's all dropping. And what's happening, of course, is that we are receiving some incredibly powerful and electromagnetic pulses and other information and rays and frequencies from the deep cosmos. This is affecting all life on Earth. It's also part of what is happening to spur Gaia, our mother planet, through her own evolution. And as you know, Gaia has an electromagnetic field. So do we. Our bodies, our fields are tied to Gaia's. We're all going through this evolution together. And if any of you are familiar with Robert Temple's work, A New Science of Heaven, I've been looking into plasma physics. And so our bodies, actually, if you look into it, we're more than molecules, more than atoms. There's a part of us that is made of plasma. And what is happening when we receive pulses, CMEs, coronal mass ejections, which are throwing huge, huge, powerful waves at the planet, that's exciting the plasma that's inside all form of life.
Mhm.
What this can do is, for those people who are not centered and grounded, this can really throw you off balance. And that's why it is so important to begin to go inward and to stabilize yourself and begin to come from the heart. All of that information is what we know we need to do. But what I'm seeing is a pathway, and the pure gem body, those light codes, that codex, that is all being awakened through the DNA, through the cellular action. Now, as we've seen, there are a lot of tools out there, whether it's the spooky machines, the Rife frequency that can deliver Rife frequency for healing. People are coming up with various devices and tools. In a sense, these are helpful. We all like our gadgets, especially those of us technologically inclined. However, the end thing to keep in mind is you are your own powerful device. And so if you go within and you begin to use some of these techniques and focus on elevating your consciousness, elevating your DNA, the cellular, through water, which carries light code frequencies, into the DNA through your blood, you can bring all of this information together and supercharge yourself to begin to move towards the pure gem body. It is a process, but learning to discern what's good information and what's manipulated information is a challenge for all of us. And that's where Maia's work comes in, because she lays it out very, very clearly, directly from Thothic intelligence. And so this information you will find very, very useful in your own process of evolution.
Thank you, Jody. I wanted to say, and I apologize for the noise. That was a cat, got 4 of them. Anyway, there's a video, if you go to my Blue Star Rising, that I share with Michael Henry Dunn, a YouTube channel that we have, Blue Star Rising, you will find a video. I thought I had it listed here. Well, we have one called on Sagittarius, the spiral stairway, which I think you'll find interesting, but that's not the one I was looking for. There is one on the, what Jody was speaking about, the bringing together the two universes, not the two universes, the two galactic fields of Sagittarius and where we are now. And I was looking for the name of it, but I can't find it. But if you go into Blue Star Rising and you go into the playlist on Ascension Dynamics, I think it will be kind of obviously there. It talks about Sagittarius merging with our field here. It's really very interesting and on target with what Jody was speaking about in the first part, that she was saying. And also about the plasma. You see, the plasma, even though it might be affecting us negatively right now, it's actually helping to change the construction of the DNA. So it's not something we want to block. It's something we want to help. We want the body to help itself to adjust to it.
Yes.
With like 5G, we want to block it, but with the plasma field, we just want to be able to respond to it in the appropriate way.
Well, this is really fascinating. The plasma then and so more of our plasma will be activated. Will we become more of that plasmic light?
Mhm. Yes, yes. It's the transforming element. Ironically, there's also the darker plasmas. I say darker, the more chaotic ones, like what Thoth calls the archonic cloud, which is a plasma cloud that is really a contagion. It's and it's to what we're, to the spiritual energy we're producing. So it affects us like a virus. And he said this long before what, it was way back. And in that way, it's a viral cloud that enters our field and attaches to fear, anxiety, confusion, ignorance, and it makes our already, karmic situation more intense. But as we move through this purifying plasma field, it's going to be in competition with the viral field. And the viral field is going to be, being triggered to leave or to slowly break up and disseminate as the more positive light field comes in. But so where you have the higher light field and the viral field coming together, you're going to have a lot of friction because one is gobbling up the other, and there's just, there's friction there. So that's a lot of what we're feeling as well. There is a sort of a war going on between the two fields. I really don't like to use that word mostly because it indicates, chaos and destruction and all that stuff. And that's really not the kind of war I'm talking about, but it is a war in the sense of two occupying forces, and one has a right to be there to bring forth the spiritual harmony of being, and the other is an intruder. So there is, in that sense, the push and pull of those two frequencies. As a higher one, doesn't really destroy the lower one. It accepts it and transforms it into the higher sense of the field. It's like two vibrations, frequencies. And, in science, you have two tuning forks, and one's at the higher vibration, one's the lower. And the lower will become higher because when you bring the two together, it's that kind of a thing.
Okay, so beautiful. Well, you had mentioned, and Jody, you'd mentioned this too, about the water, and how we can use that water. Can you share more on this?
Well, yes, Thoth speaks about water a lot, especially lately, the last few years, because it definitely is the transforming element in many ways for our planet. I know it's so polluted now in so many places, but again, the plasmatic translation of energies on this planet water is going to start responding to that and start purifying itself. And the blood will start purifying itself. And there's another interesting part of all of this, and that's salt. I don't think even Jody's heard me say this, because this goes way back in time. When I was guided to move to Salt Lake City the first time in Utah, and I've never been there ever, and I was asked to move there. My mother and I was that young. So we moved to Salt Lake City. I actually moved back 4 times within a period of, 10 years, because they wanted me to work here, then I go there and then come back again. The whole thing about Salt Lake City is another story, but that was where he started telling me about salt the first time I was there, which would have been 74, I guess. And the value of certain salt fields, specifically on the planet, like the Great Salt Lake Field, which is now drying up so completely. And now I know, of course, we have the Himalayan salt, we have the Celtic salt, some of the higher vibrational salts on the planet. And he was speaking to me about the value of these salts. And of course, not talking about table salt that's been ruined, but true earth organic salts, and how these frequencies are going to help when they're entered into the field of water or liquid, they start transforming these fields. And this means that it's doing it in our bodies with the blood. So as we take the salt and the water, the right kind of salt, of course, and the water into our bodies, and many of us have been using the right salt for years, but see, it's different now because now things are going to start behaving in a higher frequency than they were before. So before it was healthy for us, but now it's going to be more valuable to our synthesis, our transformation. And he spoke to me about something that I never really entirely understood. And I honestly didn't ask more about it then, and I haven't since. But he said that in the higher state, and this was before he used the term pure gem body, you know, he added to things as he went along. So I didn't know the words pure gem body, but he said in the higher body form, that's the way he put it. And I didn't know about the new earth. He said in the higher body form, the salt and the water would have two separate functions in the body. They wouldn't be coalesced together anymore. The salt would be in one channel. I can't imagine how this works, but and the water would be in another. And there would be some kind of electrical connection between the two, but it wouldn't be all dissolved together. It has a purpose now being dissolved together, but in this higher state, it's kept separate. I don't want to keep going on that, but it's just an interesting thing that he told me years ago. So back to the water again. You know, we have the sea salt, of course, we have the water in the oceans. Of course, a lot of the oceans are so polluted now, but that is going to start changing in many ways with the assimilation of the salt frequencies in a higher metabolic action with the planet and with human beings. However, this is an important part of all of this. This planet that we're living on now is not going to become paradise. It's not going to be all cleaned up and we're going to have a paradise here. What is happening is it's moving through a process so that select land areas, and by select, I mean select by frequency, will be able to sustain what I'm speaking of here. And those areas will concentrate that energy and it will radiate out the frequency of the planet so that everyone that is in that frequency, no matter where they are on the planet, will start receiving from it. It's a little technical here, but the reason the whole earth isn't just going to be saved as it is now is because we have already moved through so many different formations with it. And from one point of view, and there's two aspects of it, let's say. One aspect is that even if it was purely wonderful and everything was just hunky-dory and the birds were singing in the sky and the blue and everything, and all was fine, we would still be moving from a world system 1, which is entropy, to a world system 2, which is centropy. It would just be so much easier and so much more fun. But because we have messed things up so much, you know, we're having to go through a bumpy ride to do that. So that's one thing right there. And the other thing is the parts of the energy field that have been extremely weakened, they're going to be left behind as this process moves forward. And the parts of the energy field that we're helping to uplift and sustain, even if we can just save a few little pieces, is going to be enough to carry the whole process forward so that we, souls who choose to move forward, not through any belief system, don't have to know Thoth speak, none of that, but in their hearts and vibrational frequency, will be able to move with it. So it's piecing things together frequency-wise from the earth, from the animals, from the plants, from the humans, so that we can have this ride forward for a flashpoint of what Thoth calls Light Principle 40, LP40, to be able to go into this other frequency zone. And there's more to it for those of you who don't know, just very briefly. We're not staying in this galaxy, in this solar system. I mean, we're moving back home into the Orion field. That's again another story. I'm not going to get off on it here. But so all of this process is involved. So back to the water. I mean, sorry, but there's so much involved. So back to the water. It's our transport. It's one of our main transports, along with salt. And there are other things, of course, as well. The plasma field is the thing that electrifies it, that brings it into quantification so that these things can occur.
I'd like to add, since we're discussing water, as most people know, on a physical level, our bodies are more than 70% made up of water. On a molecular level, it's more than 98%. So water is incredibly critical for the physical body, which is why trying to find the purest source of water that you can to sustain your body is important. However, I'd also like to refer people to a water scientist by the name of Veda Austin, Veda Austin, Austin. She's a New Zealand water researcher who has carried forward the work of Masaru Emoto. There was a very recent interview that Pam Gregory, the wonderful astrologer, did with her. And I'd suggest watching that one because she shows you and very concisely explains it in that interview. Water is conscious. It responds to your thought. This is why we've all heard your thoughts create reality. And I think we're on the process of struggling to understand just what that means. She has taken water and aimed thoughts at it, and pictures representing that thought come forward as she freezes the water between the solid state of ice and the liquid form, right in that transitional state. Water has responded back to her with intelligence. So water itself is transforming, as Maia just said. It itself is evolving and transforming and can communicate to us, and we can to it. So you, with your own thoughts, have the ability to transform your water that you drink. You don't need a special device. It's nice to have water, a device that'll take out the heavy metals and the fluoride and all the other junk so that you're working with as pure a source as you can. But don't feel you have to go out and buy something. This is, again, is beginning to enter into your own mastery of creating your reality. Begin with water. Get the finest source of water source that you can and begin to work with your love, your thoughts, and transform your own water. And you can see the evidence of this in the pictures that Veda shows in the interview she did with Pam Gregory. So you can learn much more about it. But water is very important. All of life is so intelligent, and we can communicate with it. And we have the ability within ourselves, which we are moving forward as we change our own bodies and become and light up the pure gem body that we are moving towards. This is all part of us experiencing, discovering all of this anew and becoming fully conscious of who we are.
Yes, absolutely. And while we're still on the topic, just briefly, a little bit more here. Thoth really seems to like what's called a terahertz frequency in water. I mean, this is just one thing. And I do happen to have a iTerracare wand, and you want to make sure and get that if you're going to get one, rather than a knockoff, because I've heard those frequencies may not be right. But anyway, I use the Thoth approved iTerracare wand. I don't really use it on my body. It blows like a hairdryer and it kind of disturbs me. But I put it in the bathroom and I turn it on my water bottle for the day, because the water you can only use for 24 hours before it dissipates. But anyway, I have a water bottle, and it's already come out of a Kangen machine and has 9010 frequencies and all kinds of things in it. But then I terahertz it, and I drink that. But if you don't want to spend all that money, I'm saying you can put that terahertz frequency in the water yourself through focusing on it. First, you need to learn about terahertz frequency in general. You can just, Google terahertz and come up with, different things on the actual frequency of terahertz. And once if you feel guided to do this, once you got it, you don't have to memorize it, but just sort of have it in your field, like kind of what it is, and you want to accept it into your body, then you can put it in your water. Pray, just put your hand over the water, focus the energy, and place that terahertz frequency in the water. That's just one example. You don't have to do the terahertz, but it's one that he, seems to encourage me to use. And I just use the wand.
Oh my goodness. Thank you both for sharing on that. And Jody, it was really interesting that you brought up Masaru Emoto and Veda Austin's work, because I was going to ask about that. I find it fascinating that the salt on one hand and the water working together is the transforming part of us. It is what is assisting in this transformation. So it really is fascinating. I just want to share as well that Masaru Emoto, I had the fortunate opportunity to interview him. And he, in one word, said, or he summed it all up, all his years of his work, his research. And he said, water is God.
Mm.
So to interface with water in this way, to realize how it is a mirror for us, how it is intelligent, and how we can put it in our body in this way with the terahertz frequency and bless it and put loving thoughts into our water. That really is wonderful. Can you also share, on both of you, on what you know about how we could take the salt? I'm hearing that question from our audience. How can we do what is called as a Soleil, salt saturated water? What can we do to intake salt? Any advice?
Well, from what I'm receiving in the moment, of course, you can do salt baths, of course, but you need to have the right salt again. Now, some of the Himalayan salt is iffy. I've heard that it's not quite right. I would go, focus is on the Celtic gray salt, the Celtic gray. Now, there may be some others I've heard they're pretty good too, but I know that he does, give a 5-star on the Celtic gray, because it's controlled how it is manufactured and distributed, and so you've got the right frequency. So that's what I would use first of all in your soaks, and all of that. But also, I'm receiving, if you take just a few grains of the salt, and I bought it on Amazon, and it's thick grains. It's not little teeny tiny grains. And if you put 2 or 3 at the top of your mouth, just right up as close to the nasal passage as you can, right up there, and just kind of, hold it there as it dissolves. And as you're doing that, Thoth is suggesting right now, I haven't heard this before, that you go like you have it up there and then you go, as you're toning it, and sort of visualizing the energy, moving from the roof of your mouth through the third eye up, encompassing the whole energy field, as you're letting the salt dissolve. That's one thing, and of course, just drinking it, just eating it, putting on your food is important. So I'm sure there are other things you can do. I don't know about the Soleil thing. Maybe Jody can address that, but that's what I'm receiving from Thoth.
Yeah, I haven't heard about that. What I have heard, of course, and I believe this is actually being tested, whether it's the Center for Science and the Public Interest or another group that has tested the salts, the pink Himalayan salt is unfortunately full of toxic heavy metals. So there's only, I think, 2 sources of that have been tested and shown to be pure. So unfortunately, it's everywhere, and people are unaware of this. Ooh, pink Himalayan salt. Everybody gets jazzy about it. But the reality is it's loaded with heavy metals. As you know, between geoengineering, all these heavy metals have been dumped on the surface of the earth and the waters. Well, that's where we get our salt from. So you'd have to be very careful with your source of salt. The Celtic gray is a good one. And there's another one that's actually from Mexico, where I'm in at the moment. And I found it on Amazon. I'll have to get it and maybe send you the link for that, Lauren. But those of you, if you do any dowsing, now I'm not a traditional dowser with the copper rods. I did do that. I use the method is called frequency dowsing, which is Dr. Robert Gilliam, who's got a series on Gaia, and he's got courses. It's a different form of dowsing, and it's neutral. And so what you're doing is you're working with your dowsing abilities, which is basically your body, but you use a neutral pendulum, and you're using it. You can test. I would suggest any supplements, any salts, anything that you might be thinking about putting into your body. Those of you who are dowsers, I would test it. I've also used applied kinesiology for decades. The problem with that is not always reliable. You cannot get the emotional, psychological aspect of your own self out of that process. It's very challenging. You have to clear yourself and try and neutralize yourself as much as possible. You can do applied kinesiology, but frequency dowsing, or a form of dowsing which is as neutral as possible, you can test what you're putting into your body. So I would test your salts, but be aware, that's all.
Beautiful. Thank you both so much for this information. I encourage those who are watching and listening to put these practices into place. And as we close our presentation with you, is there anything then that we should do beyond all of this? Is this process happening to us whether we are aware of it or not? Or do we consciously promote it?
Well, it is happening whether we're aware of it or not, but it is good to consciously promote it too, because of course you're enhancing it, you're engaging it, and the more you engage it, the more, an awareness you have of it in whatever way it comes to you, the more, entangled it's going to be in your quantum field. And of course, if the souls on this planet who are simply entirely invested in not doing these sorts of things, and I don't mean from a belief system standpoint, I'm talking about in their actions on the planet. If they're involved in harming people in planetary space, and that's what they intend to do and want to do, well, they're kind of out of the picture. They're not going to be able to move through these changes, not because some God finger points at them and says, you've been bad, but because they are disengaging from that frequency field, and they'll have to go through a process. The souls will have to go somewhere else, move through the spiral, find a place of understanding and frequency in order to, come back to the font. But others, others of us, and again, it doesn't require a belief system. You don't have to meditate all day, although meditation is good. It's not that kind of a thing. It's frequency, it's heart-centered frequency and consciousness. If you're a good person, don't have to be perfect, and you treat your neighbors well, and you're a good person, and you just love life, and you want the planet to be safe and harmonious, this is the frequency that is going to carry you through this dimensional change. Despite the discomfort you might feel, things happen, challenges are going to be presented, but nevertheless, you're going to be on target with it because you're saying, here I am. I accept this. I want this in my life.
Exactly. I'd liken it to, for example, people who would like to become more fit. Well, sitting there meditating, saying, I want my muscles to be stronger, is not going to do the same for you as if you actually do some exercises and go for walks. You will develop muscles. So being conscious of that process is one thing. We cannot stop what is happening. We are hurtling through the galactic sheet, and Gaia is going through her process. This is all part of a divine plan. It's not like we can stop it. We're part of it. And the point is, do you jump on and say, let's go for this ride? Or do you say, no. So it's being conscious of making the right choices. Now, when you go on an adventure of healing your body, as many people know, you might have a Herxheimer effect as you detoxify. And that might mean, as you begin to evolve consciously, realizing your own patterns. What have you done in the past that has either hurt people? Are you continuing to be part of this pattern? Or do you have the ability to go within and say, that no longer serves me? It's a painful process, and a lot of people are in trauma, but a lot of people are coming to terms with evolving and understanding who they are, and part of that is painful. So I would encourage everybody, don't give up, keep moving forward, know that we are all in this together, and
Exactly.
we are all at different stages of our journeys. But if you keep your eyes on the prize of a better world for all, and an entirely new world, which we can create, because the human species has that ability. We have just been so suppressed and so controlled and so programmed, we're not even aware of the power that we have.
Well,
we can.
Sorry.
No, we can do it. We really can. We can all come together, and the more of us that do, the faster we ourselves will change and move forward into this new earth reality by changing our frequency and moving forward. Yes, Maya.
Yes, I was just going to add that, it's an open-ended process. In other words, it's important for those of us who feel really connected. We know we still have more to go, of course, but we feel really connected, and we're working with all of this to realize that it's an open-ended process, so that we're constantly evolving in this field, and we need to be prepared to turn loose of things that might be our, something treasured in our belief system, if we see that there is a different path, or maybe modify it, not through somebody else's influence, but through our own discernment. Because a lot of the things that we maybe think are sure in our lives, even though we feel awakened, we may find that we need to change at times, especially as we're entering this next phase. It's going to shake people up, in other words, not just people that haven't done their homework, but for all of us who have, it's going to say, well, maybe 2 + 2 doesn't equal 4 anymore. It did once, but maybe it doesn't now. We have to be aware for the new math.
So beautiful and inspiring. I want to thank you both so much for the information that you shared. And I can hear everyone saying, yes, let's go for this ride. We're going for this ride. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you both so much. We are inspired, and we are consciously moving forward to New Earth, the New Earth Star. And I want to take everyone to Maia's YouTube channel, Blue Star Rising, to watch all the videos that she brings forward. It's a wealth of information. Thank you both so much for being here.
Thank you, Lauren.
It's a pleasure. Take care, everyone.
Bye-bye.
This has been a presentation of New Earth One Network, your home for New Earth living. Visit newearth1.com.